Hey everybody, this is Bitches in Business, episode 4, and we are so excited to introduce you to Mara Shorr, who is one of the owners of Shorr Solutions, formerly known as, I wrote this down, the best medical business solutions.
Yay, good job.
Thank you. We're going to talk about why the name change, although maybe it's because it's 4 syllables versus 2. But first, Mara and I are having our first face-to-face conversation after, when did you move away?
Oh, gosh.
When we were in 10th grade?
Yeah, I moved away the summer after 10th grade, so you've got a decade and a half plus probably going on. Yeah,
we've seen each other. We were like casual acquaintances in high school, obviously friends of friends kind of thing. And then I guess we just connected online, and then we knew that we were both in businesses. We both worked for our fathers. So there was a lot that's kind of connected us over the years, but we have not had a face-to-face since high school. So It is so great to see you, and it doesn't feel like it's been that long. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. So why don't you introduce yourself, give us a little background, tell us about the new name of your business, and then we'll go from there.
You got it. So as Bekah said, my name is Mara Shorr, and I am the partner and vice president of Marketing and Business Development with Shorr Solutions, which is previously the Best Medical Business Solutions. And obviously we went through a rebrand recently and are really excited with a newer, more concise name that is a little bit more memorable. But what we do essentially is work with medical practices and small businesses on the actual business side of what they do, because we recognize that so often the medical providers, doctors, and whether it's a nurse practitioner, a PA, an esthetician, any other business owner, they're so focused on the art and their craft that they aren't focused on their business. And so what we found is that so often the business side of the business internally doesn't get the attention that it deserves. And so we help with the operational, financial, and administrative health of their business. And so essentially what we do is we help them save time, we help them save money so that they can get back to doing what it is that they love. And everything from helping them create a marketing plan, help them negotiate contracts, whether it's a real estate contract, a vendor agreement, if they're looking to purchase a new piece of equipment, what is it that they're looking to do? We'll help review those contracts and negotiate on their behalf, hiring, firing, staff training, and all of those great things. So really the operational, administrative, and financial health of the business. And we've been in business for 6 years now. And some topic I know will come up is that, like I said, I am a partner. The other partner in the founder of our business is actually my father. So I am so incredibly grateful every day that I have my father as a business partner.
That is great to hear.
That's awesome. I definitely want to dive in there. But let's start back at the beginning, 6 years ago.
Okay.
Why did you guys want to start Shorr Solutions? Now, what was that catalyst that made you?
Sure. So 6 years ago, what ultimately happened is my father was working as the vice president of operations and really the practice administrator for a dermatology and cosmetic surgery practice in South Florida. And he had grown that practice from 1 location to 3 locations. It was a multi-million-dollar practice. It was doing incredibly well. He had seen over the years, as he had attended conferences, but there really was a lack of, at that point in time in our industry, there was just a lack of our service. And so there weren't people that were lecturing on practice management at the conferences he was going to. And so he said, I'm more than happy to give a lecture. Anyone that's ever met my father, Jay Short, knows that he loves nothing more than standing on a stage and sharing his knowledge. It's like all of a sudden the suit comes off and the cape just flies out. So he loves it. And so he would give 1 lecture, and then maybe he'd give another lecture the next year, and he would write for one industry publication, and he'd picked up a client, and it was a side hustle. So what ended up happening is that the medical director for the practice, who was my stepmother, she passed away. She lost her battle with cancer very, very quickly. She passed away. And it all happened from within 7 months from diagnosis to when she actually passed. It was very quick, and anyone that's ever seen a family member gone through this who's gone through this themselves knows that at that point you become a caretaker, and then you aren't quite sure what to do with yourself afterwards. And so his world was just completely caught up in that. I had done a little bit of work with what is now our company, and what was then a side hustle. It was always going to be his retirement plan, and I had done a little bit of work with it before the practice closed down, and I had done some marketing work with the medical practice as well. And so once the practice itself had shut down, he took some time just to regroup. And it really is, it's part of our story. And the reason I mention this is because so often people say, well, why isn't he still with that practice? If it was this incredibly successful practice, what did he run it into the ground? And so I always want to make sure people understand that that's not at all what happened. And so he basically took the summer to take a deep breath and get some sleep and eat well again, and maybe play around a golf and do these things that he hadn't done for almost a year. So at that point in time, he said, I'm not quite sure what I want to do with this business and this side hustle. So we decided that I would do and take some steps of what would happen should he decide to come back full term, but things that weren't going to show results immediately. So building relationships with conferences, so that we know it takes, if you're going to speak at an industry conference, it's anywhere from the short side is 4 or 5 months that you need to apply for a conference. It could be a year in advance. So applying to industry conferences, I was at that point deciding to connect with industry publications so he would have writing opportunities. And it was basically that when he was ready, there would be something for him to return to. So that fall, he said, I'm ready to come back. And he did, and started growing from 2 clients to 3 clients, 3 clients to 4 clients. And we now have clients all over the United States, as well as a few clients in Canada. We don't take any clients internationally just because what we focus on is just so different once you get outside of the United States, and there's language barriers and issues like that. So we don't focus outside of the US and Canada. And we now lecture for about 12 conferences a year, write for about half a dozen or so industry publications throughout the course of the year, and have grown. And at one point in time, I came to him, and I previously had a marketing and community relations firm called the Leon Company, and said to him, I can't continue to run 2 full-time businesses at once. And I think any of us that have ever started a side business while working full-time, you know that there comes a point where you have to make that choice, and you figure out when you'll know when it comes time to make that choice. And so I said to him one day, I need to speak with you. Let's set aside time. I have to talk. And he said, it's never a good thing when someone says, I need to talk to you. So he said, are you breaking up with me? And I said, just the opposite. I want to come work for this company full time. And he said, understand, right now, I can't afford to pay you any more than I already am because of where the company is. And I said, I completely understand that, but this has far more potential, and I'm really excited about this. I love what I do. I love the industry. I love working with him as my business partner. And I said, this is where I want to be. And so he said, what I'll do is I will make you a 50-50 partner. And that way, understand that as the business grows, then you will then get more money, and you will get more power as the years go on. But so at the time, he was managing partner, but I came in and I was partner about a year after we had started working together. And it's one of the best decisions I had ever made, is deciding that it was the right time for us to work together. And so here I am. That all happened, like I said, 5-6 years ago. And I haven't looked back since. It's been crazy. It's been exciting. And I've loved every moment of it. So yeah, that's where I decided to come into the business and how I grew. And I'd been a nonprofit before that. So I worked with the local NPR and PBS affiliate, and I had worked with the Florida Film Festival as well. And I was in development and fundraising at that point. So
well, it seems like you had a really natural transition of like helping him initially with that PR aspect, right? Getting him on conferences, getting him on these writing gigs, and then just kind of really, use those skills you were already doing in your day job, right, to your side hustle, which is pretty cool.
Exactly. So that's the basics of how I came into this. And yeah, that's my basic background.
So question about you also changing your name, and like, I think the Shorr Solutions makes so much sense, and I think it's clear what you do. Obviously, I'm sure you're known now in the industry, but taking out that best medical business solutions part, is this something that you guys have thought about expanding into other industries, or is what you do so specific to the medical industry that it's not going to really necessarily apply to your average, I don't know, car mechanic industry or something?
So we have historically worked with medical practices, like I said, and we've worked in private practice. So we don't work with large hospital systems. And where we work is really it's been historically medical, but we also take on certain small businesses, and we're not looking for somebody that, we're not looking to take on Disney as a client. Disney, if you're listening, you're fantastic. You employ friends and family. I'm right here in Orlando, so you don't want to, you don't want to anger Disney, but we're not looking to take on, a huge mammoth company. But we do look at small businesses. And so, yes, we do take on small businesses, although historically we have been specializing in the medical and dental space. So, and we really historically have focused on the cosmetic and aesthetic side as well, not necessarily insurance-based providers. So I always joke there's a lot of boobs, butts, and Botox in my world. So that's just part of my everyday life. It doesn't even faze me anymore.
Oh my goodness. I love that.
Yeah.
We really have to jump to my favorite topic on with your business, and I want to talk about working with family, most specifically your dad. Like, what are those takeaways? I think maybe our regular listeners and viewers don't know, but Bekah and I still work with our dads on either a more full-time or project basis. So knowing that about you, we're like, oh my God, totally a natural fit.
Yes.
So let's talk about what are those, how do you work with your dad?
So what's interesting is that there was a much shorter period of time that I worked for him versus now working with him. So like I said, I'm a partner, and I understand that that's not something that everybody experiences, right? Where there's many situations where it's that whether it's dad or mom are the bosses. And I am incredibly grateful that he's never pulled the I'm the boss card, or, I started this business, so we're going to do what I say goes. I think with us, there's a couple things. Number one, years ago, back when I had my own company, there was a situation I got into where I started working without a signed contract and without payment. I thought it was a good idea. I thought, and I think we've all, Bekah's shaking her head. I think at some point or another, I think we've all made this mistake. You have to learn that you only make that mistake once. Of course, I would always hope, and like to anybody listening, if you haven't already started your business, if you haven't taken on your first client, or if you haven't made this mistake yet, don't make this mistake. That do not start working without payment. Do not start working without a signed contract. But I made that mistake.
And we'll add to that, if your contract says that you need to be paid monthly by a certain date and they don't pay you by that date, stop working. It's just the reality. And it is a reality. You're right. Every business, we're saying it right now, but they're going to do it anyway. It's going to happen. You're going to learn your lesson. And
you are.
There's a reason why on our general ledgers, we have a line for unpaid invoices, right?
And so we actually, and not to totally go off topic, but we request and we obtain, when we bill out in our company, a retainer amount up front. So we're never billing behind. So it's not that we do the work and then bill for the time. We bill out and then we deduct the hours worked off of that retainer. We never trace our money. So if we're looking at a site visit, we want the money before we even get on that plane. So I don't want to hear that you'll give us the check when we get there. No, the money needs to be in hand. So, but anyway, so I had made that mistake years ago when I had my previous company, and he had said to me, I warned you, right? This is what we all say to each other, right? Just like you guys were both saying, that at some point everyone makes that mistake, but you only make that mistake once. Hopefully it's a smaller amount that you make that mistake for. Mine was between 10 and 15 grand, which to me did not feel small at the time. You know, to some companies it may feel small, to some companies it might not. It did not feel small to me, but it is what it is. And he said, I hope you learned your lesson. And the next month we decided to work together. And I said to him, do you remember how you told me never to start working without a contract? He said, yes. I said, I would like a contract. And so at the time his company was a client of my company. So I said, either you can provide the contract or I can provide the contract, but we're not going to start working unless there's a contract. We still laugh about it to this day, but it's true. And so we had a signed contract. And there was, very set amount of how things were going to work. So I think we treated it like an actual business relationship. It wasn't that I was playing business. It wasn't that I went, I can't do anything else, so I'm going to work for my dad. He was a client of mine. And he treated me with the respect that I deserve, which I think is really important. I think that we also said from the beginning that, and I've seen other situations where it had gone really, really wrong as far as family working together. And so we said from the beginning, first and foremost, our family relationship is more important than anything else. So let's say we're going to reevaluate in 90 days. If it's clear from 2 weeks in, from day 17, this isn't working, then that's a different story. But let's reevaluate. And, I forget now if it was, I think 60 or 90 days, let's reevaluate how this is going. And is this still going okay? Because first and foremost, we're family, and that's the most important. And so we took that time, and I don't think either one of us necessarily realized how well we would end up working together. And I say that you need to be alike where you need to be alike, and you need to be different where you need to be different. Because if you are too similar in certain ways, then you're going to butt heads. And if you're so different in other ways that, you don't have one person that can pick up where the other person leaves off. So I think my dad and I have a very similar personality, and we laugh at the same ridiculous jokes. We both have the same funny little sense of quick wit. We both have a very strong work ethic. But I think much more on the, project management, creative side. He is without a doubt, our CFO, and handles our financials. He handles all the contract reviews and the financial analyses for our clients as well. So I think that we both bring different things to the table, and I think that's incredibly important as well. And that's, we say first and foremost, we're family. And if something happens that, I need to take a family member to a doctor's appointment, where there was a period where he had to care for both my grandparents. And so he said, look, this is what I'm going to have to do. And I'm going to have to be out of the office for this, that, or the other thing. And I think you understand that more when it's family too. But I think that respect is key, and you need to always treat your family member with the respect you'd give any other workplace professional, and not talk to them differently because you think, oh, I can because it's my family. What have you both found, given that you both have this too? And tips, tricks, anything?
One of the things that I think might differ slightly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is in that, like, Nikki and I probably both, like, the whole millennial, us being very much in the millennial, maybe what we do too is like the creative social media stuff, which not to say that you guys don't, but you guys seem a little more streamlined and like you're doing the same things, although he's handling the financials.
Right, and we don't handle the digital.
Right. So dads don't get it. So us working with our dads is in that space. So I think it's hard to communicate at times, and even communicating the need. I mean, we struggle with this with clients sometimes, like convincing them that they need to be on digital, is a thing. I have to have a conversation with my dad quite often, why we're spending 20 grand on this particular thing or something like that. So that's definitely been a struggle in communication, and I'm not good at it. I'm sometimes it's just because it takes a lot of effort, and I'm just like, I can't do it. Just give me the money and I'll take care of it. And he does trust me, granted. I think,
right.
So for my background, working for my dad, people that don't know, my dad has a hot tub company locally, 3 locations. And so I have done his marketing since 2005. And even when Nikki and I started the company, I continued to do his marketing. And every year I say, I will no longer do my dad's marketing. And every year I still continue to do my dad's marketing. So that's also a problem when you work for your dad. we talk about it all the time. He's like, what's going on? When are you going to stop working? Like, he's not asking me to leave. Like, it's partly why I haven't.
Right.
You know, and obviously having something consistent while we're building our business too has been
Sure.
really helpful on the financial end. But yeah, Nikki, what about you and Doug?
I always find it funny when I'm sending an email to multiple people, including my dad, and calling him by his first name. Because
I do that all the time. I do that.
How do you direct an email to dad?
Yeah, no, and in emails, yes, and in person too. We travel a lot together, and I don't know if you and your dads have traveled together for work. And so, like I said, in our particular industry, I believe more so than in other spaces, although I certainly could be wrong, there is a lot of a more distinguished looking gentleman with a much younger woman that is a second wife, a third wife,
Yep, 100%. That awkward situation has happened, and it's horrible.
And every conference, and we've been traveling together, and we both, I mean, stand up on podiums. We could have 10 lectures at this conference, and and everyone, we always specify we are a father-daughter team. Without a doubt, someone will come up every conference. Now it's only about one person. It used to be everybody. And they'll say, oh, I was speaking with your husband. And, you know, not my husband, because I refer to him by his first name. And every once in a while, when we're transitioning and, you know, when we're traveling together, because, I mean, we're a small company, and because he is my dad, we share a hotel room. If the conference doesn't pay for hotels for each of us, we'll share a hotel room. He's my father. I'm totally fine with that. I think that we've built so many different jokes and things like that because we spend so much of that time together when we're traveling. But people then see the two of us getting on the elevator together. We go into the same room. So, and I know every time it's that one transition moment where every once in a while we get into the elevator, it's just us, and I look at him and, you know, so Jay, where are we going for dinner? And he looks at me and, Dad, I mean, Dad, you know, I get it. I just, you know, hadn't quite made that transition from daytime to evening.
Well, have you done it the other way? Because I for sure have been sitting in a meeting and I've been like, Dad. And then I'm like, no, like, we're in a meeting. And I've like called him Daddy. Like, I don't call my dad Daddy. Like, I'm not a weird.
Right.
I've actually said the words Daddy in front of other people. Because I call him Danny. His name's Dan. And my sisters and I call him Danny, actually. So I think sometimes I'm like, Daddy. I'm like, no.
It happens. It didn't. I don't ever say Daddy, but it happens every once in a while at the end of an evening if we're at dinner with colleagues that we've known for a long time, or if we're taking, you know, clients that we know really well to dinner, or it could be that they're vendors that we work with, but we've worked with them for years and we see them a dozen times a year. So, I mean, they're friends at this point, right? Like, you become friends with those people. And so at the end of the night, it's almost like letting your hair down, where it's like you feel like you can look across the table and say, so Dad, can you pass the whatever? And the person looks for a moment, but you go, I've known you long enough. Look, it's no secret. He is my father. You have to understand that at some point I call him Dad. So, but people, it's funny because a lot of people question, they said, you call your father by his first name. Like, not when it's just the two of us, not when we're having dinners together on a Sunday afternoon, you know, or evening, but in business setting, yes. So Nikki, you were saying, so you and Doug.
Me and Doug, Dad. I think it's interesting working with someone or proposing something to someone who is in a different generation, business-wise and age-wise. And I wrote down questions. I was like, working with someone of that age range, do you automatically see those things that stick out of like, how can I change and spin this for a client of a certain age? Or how can I explain to Dad, like, a younger client expects X, Y, and Z?
So I think there's a couple different things. Our clients are anywhere from their mid 30s to maybe late 50s, early 60s. And so we really do have different generations of clients, and there's definitely times when having to explain, this is why this generation believes this. And I think that there's certain things that have become more and more of an issue. Looking at workplace benefits, paid family leave is becoming more and more of an issue. So the concept of work-life balance, I think that baby boomer generation, it was, you should be grateful that you have a job and that job treats you well, and you should give it your all, and we expect you to stay with the company if all of those things align. And I think that you have a millennial generation that wants, they want a lot more benefits. They want, they want a lot more. It doesn't necessarily, it's not just you go to work, you get a paycheck, and you'll stay there forever. They want to do something that they believe in. They want to be appreciated. I think communication styles are interesting too. I don't know if you've both found this, but we find that when communicating with with our more baby boomer clients, it's very much, let's pick up the phone and have a meeting. And the same with Jay, let's pick up the phone and have a meeting. Let's pick up the phone, let's pick up the phone. And with some of our younger clients, and again, younger for us really is more the clients in their 30s, right? So, the younger clients, it's, well, I'll email you. And so they just want to send that email and get things handled that way. And so emails will go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And sometimes it's just, Jay goes, we just need to pick up the phone and get this hammered out already. So I think communication style has been interesting. And so there are ways that I have transitioned where I typically and historically had been much more that let's just, we'll email. And for me personally, because we've had people that it's, oh, I'll send you a Facebook message, oh, I'll send you an email, or maybe I'll text you, or maybe we'll email, well, maybe we'll, and then you get into, I always laugh because I joke that when it comes to video conferencing, everybody seems to have a different preferred method, right? So this one wants FaceTime, this one wants Skype, this one wants Zoom, this one wants GoToMeeting, and this one wants Google Hangout. You go, and they're like, so just leave it open and I'll contact you when I'm ready. I'm going, so I need to have all my screens open all the time for your preferred method. But that's it, and that's customer service. So I think it's been interesting, and I said, absolutely, if you're more comfortable with me just picking up the phone and calling clients, okay, but if a client says email is best, we also need to respect that. So I think that's been something too. And I think as our clients go on to hire and craft their employee manuals, again, it's something else that we saw as they're crafting their employee manuals, it's no longer the norm of, oh, well, you don't get any time off for the first year with us. That's not something that the next generation is expecting. And they say, what do you mean? That's just not something that's important to them. And so I was speaking with a colleague last month, and we were talking about basically employee benefits. And she said she had said to her employees, she was trying to incentivize them with bonuses and this and that, and none of it was working. And she said, okay, I'll give you, the X amount of paid time off, right? So if we get to this point, everyone on the team will get one additional day of PTO. And all of a sudden, and she goes, the PTO day was worth less than the bonuses that they could have earned. But to them, that was more important. So I think that those things are really interesting. I'm very fortunate that Jay, my father, has really, he doesn't necessarily take part in social media personally. He understands the value, and we've come up with how can this make sense for our company. So how can we, and kind of incorporating a funnel of, it's not just necessarily, oh, we have a lot of likes on Instagram, for instance. It's, well, okay, now that they're following us, then what? How do we funnel this? And I'm sure you understand this is part of what you do for a living. So how to make it make sense. But even that was a bit, not a struggle, but it was an explanation. So
yeah,
I get it. What have you found?
I don't know, Nikki, do you want to answer that? I'm trying to think
I think the biggest thing in recent days is talking or reassuring my dad and even other people of this age that a company can have a voice, a company can have a personality, they can have a stance on certain issues. It doesn't have to just be a faceless company that, you know, they don't jump into the fray. Obviously, there should be rules and boundaries, and, you know, a company should know who they are, but that I think people, especially of our generation, expect a company to have a thought, expect them to, you know, at times, if it's important to their industry, speak into whatever those, you know, pop culture moments are, or political moments even, finding ways to have a voice and be a conscience and have a culture as a company. So that's been a recent discussion.
Yeah, and I think like that conversation just about styles of communicating is key, even for us as our client base has grown, and we see that. We see certain clients that are just much more comfortable. If we know, we email our clients every Monday and every Friday, and we're going to do that regardless of whether they read it or not, because for us, it keeps us in line of here are the things we're working on this week. And we want them to know, because we've had other people say before they've signed on, like, my last agency, I never knew what they were doing, and we don't want them to write a check every month and be thinking, what did they do for us last month? Because as we know, sometimes they're not going to see the fruit of the labor that we're working on for a few months, especially when it comes to PR campaigns or social media. If an ad campaign launches 2 days at the end of the month, there's not going to be much on that monthly report. And so that's something that we're always constantly communicating, but we don't hear back from some clients. And so we've just had to kind of adjust. And then we know that if we haven't heard and we really need to talk, they'll respond when we say, hey, can we get a call? Can we get a meeting, you know, on the phone this week? And so we'll do, go ahead.
It's funny that you say that. So I always, I'm of the mentality that if I have an email like that I receive, and even just to let the other person know that I got it, I read it, I'll email back, got it. And just a simple got it. And so Jay always laughs and jokes with me. So he's like, got it. You know, that's just like, that means I got your email. There's nothing more I need to do with it, but I have it. I read it. I digested it. You don't need to tell me about it on the phone when I talk to you in an hour. You don't need to wonder if it went to a spam folder. It's been received. So so it means something is simple, because I've been on your end where it's, did you even receive this? But I understand completely. So
yeah. Well, let's jump into kind of just a question that I'm actually interested in myself, because you do consult with small businesses, and obviously they're different than our industry and maybe different than a lot of the industries that we kind of interact with. However, there's got to be some things that translate across all industries that aren't just medical specific, that like small businesses aren't doing, need to be doing better, or like need to be thinking about that they may not be. What are some of the top things that you can kind of guide us in that area?
So we find that there are, I think there's a couple things. So number one is monitoring customer service. And so we used to include this in what we did for the clients that had actually signed on with us, and they were actually full service clients. And we realized more and more this is an issue across the board. So we started offering mystery caller packages, because what we found is that people would come to us and they would say, I need better marketing. Can you give me the name of marketing agency in our industry? I need better marketing because I don't have enough patients, for instance. And we said, okay, let's take this a few steps back. What current marketing efforts do you have? And from those marketing efforts, how many either phone calls or social media messages or emails, contact us forms, whether there's a chat on their website, how many of those are you getting? Okay. From that, how many are converting to appointments, right? So people that are actually like coming in for an appointment. Okay. From those appointments, how many of those people are actually becoming patients of yours, or they're becoming customers of yours? So let's look, where in this funnel is this an issue? And I think people automatically assume, oh, if I don't have enough, whether it's customers, clients, patients, that's because my marketing isn't doing what it needs to do. You can have an amazing marketing campaign and the phone is just ringing, but if you have a rude receptionist, director of first impressions, or somebody's not responding to the emails that come in, the email inquiries, then it's all waste. So, because all your marketing can do is get the phones to ring. So I say, number one, monitor your customer service and know that your customer service is up to par. And then number two is really looking on a regular basis at your contracts. So not just letting them auto-renew, but making sure you know when they're about to renew, because you could be able to renegotiate them. Maybe they're going to renew at a much higher rate, but knowing the knowing what's going on with your finances. I think people don't take a look at all of the different ways that they could be saving money. And so whether it is evaluating what they're paying on credit card processing, right? So if you're a restaurant, if you're a medical practice, you're accepting credit cards at a pretty high rate. So what is it like? What is that credit card processing rate? What does that look like? Knowing how those things affect your bottom line. And then what else are you paying for? What are your other expenses and how can you negotiate those? Because I think people so often just assume, oh, that's the given rate. That's the rate they told me, so that's what I have to pay. And those things are up for negotiation. So I think looking at that, and if you don't like that, then take it to another vendor. I think especially when you know that you're basically going to get the same, very similar service no matter where you go. So take a look at that. And sometimes it's not necessarily getting the rate lower, but what else can you get included? Is it an extra warranty? Is it, a customer service that maybe would be charged extra with a piece of equipment that you can get them to include and, another 6 months of customer service or something like that. But I think paying attention to your finances and look at where you're spending and why. Are you just overspending? Is the company being wasteful and you don't know it? And I think that happens a lot with especially in small businesses.
Yeah. Do you have any tips as far as like managing that, even like on a practical level? Because as we've grown, as our clients have grown, I put them everywhere. They're in our calendar sometimes. Sometimes they're on like my own little personal side to-do list to say 6 months from now, renegotiate the contract with X client, or look at this. Like, is there something that we're missing that should be simpler, that should be a dated thing? Like, what do other people do?
I think having, number one, taking a look and sitting down and looking at expiration dates for all contracts, and not just expiration dates, but Bekah, just as you had mentioned, sometimes it's not like, oh, you can renegotiate it up until it expires. Sometimes there's an auto renew clause. So if you don't hear from the company, or if the company doesn't hear from you within 30 days or 60 days or 6 months, of the expiration, that it will automatically renew. So it's finding out what that date looks like, and even, market maybe a month or two before that, so that if it does get pushed further down the list, you don't end up having to do that auto renew. So I think that is really great to put it on the calendar and make it a priority, because it'll end up costing you, more money. And make it for some of these things, it could be that you want to do them quarterly, every 6 months, it might be annual, and make a point to go out and get those bids. So that you actually, and make it so that, and look, if you have to do one thing a month, or 3 things a month, versus saying all I'm doing this week is renegotiating contracts and I can't get anything else done, then maybe it's just spreading it out a little bit, but making sure that it does get done, and figure out too, who in the business is the one that's going to be doing it. Because I think everyone looks at, oh, well, I thought it was so-and-so, I thought it was so-and-so. And next thing you know, everyone thought it was someone else and it never got done. So, because it might not be the owner that's supposed to do it. It could be a practice manager. It could be an office manager that was supposed to do it. So, is it the marketing lead is in charge of the marketing contracts? But I think figuring out exactly who on the team is in charge of it is key. Because like I said, it might not be the owner of the business. So.
And I think that's actually probably a big thing that I can imagine going into small businesses, because I think Nikki and I talk about it constantly. And as we grow, for us, our roles are pretty well defined, but like, if there's things coming up, like who is responsible? I see that within my dad's business. I see that with other businesses, like who is responsible to check the fax machine for new faxes? Right. There isn't a person identified in my dad's office. It's the most annoying thing ever. So sometimes when I like go by that fax machine, I'll see 20 faxes sitting there, and there's invoices in there. There's actually things that people still use faxes apparently, and nobody is responsible. And that is like the littlest thing, but it's just an example of, I think, just there's not roles completely identified.
And that's key. And, we still, like I said, we've been in business, together about 5 years, but he's had this as a business for 6 years now. And we still, as we grow, and we've recently added a member to our team. And so we constantly are really reevaluating as our roles change. So, okay, whose job is it? And sometimes if we're both copied on an email, if we naturally know one person is the lead on that client, or one person is the lead on that project, that's different. But if you aren't sure, we're checking in with each other. Are you going to respond to this client, or am I going to respond to this client? And he might say, actually, you know, I think it's best if you do it. I might say, oh, I think it's best if you do it. And, you know, because X, Y, Z. And rather than, oh, it's just whoever gets around to it first, because we found if that's the case, it won't get handled. So whether that's responding to an email inquiry, responding to a client, checking the fax machine, you know, I think that if you and Nikki, for example, never sat down and said, well, this is who's going to be the person to, to review and negotiate contracts. This is the person that's going to be the one that sends out proposals. This is the person who is going to balance our finances every month. I think those are things that, you know, you have to figure out who's in charge of it, or it doesn't get done.
Right. No, it's totally key. And then like it makes things clear, right? So it's not like she's sitting around being like, I hope the financials get done every month. Like she'll know that I do it, and vice versa. Like I think there's things that,
Yeah, I love your secret shopper idea, because I want to be your secret shopper, because that's the thing I do when I go into any business. I'm like, oh, I would do this, and they need a note on that.
And but we found it was such an issue. And, you know, anything from, is the person not answering the phone, you know, with a smile? Are they not asking for...
Especially in the medical business. Like you can sometimes get the surly person, and that's kind of just the name of the game. But
and it's even worse when you factor in the fact that in the industry we've historically been working in is elective. So, you know, people are popping up all over town that do Botox. So
you should definitely be selling it.
We've had people that we've done a mystery call, and we'll call and ask for more information on a Thursday. We'll either be sent to a voicemail, or we'll be told someone will call back, and Tuesday rolls around and no one has called us. No one has called us back. And like, I could have already had the treatment by then. So it's, you know, letting the doctors know, letting the business owner know, this is a problem. This is where this is the path. And I mean, you know, especially from a marketing perspective, you could have done your job beautifully. You could have the best campaign that, I mean, sent the phone gangbusters, and well, what happens then, you know?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we try to remind people is that we're just part of the whole process. It's not, your whole business does not hinge on one single thing. There's a lot of moving parts, and those all have to be in line for everything to be really singing.
How important are reviews and like content, like user generated stuff within your industry? I mean, the industries you work with, I'm sure that's pretty big.
Oh, huge.
Because that's a huge thing too, especially when it comes to not necessarily the clients that Nikki and I have at the moment, though that could change. That's not 100% true. Some of them do get reviews, but you can do the best thing in the world. Your marketing and your PR can be so slick, but then you're not great. So someone like skewers you on Yelp, and there's not many that you could do. It's the most frustrating thing as a marketer.
And it's so interesting. Every conference we speak at, everyone's going, how do I handle this? Because it's become more and more of an issue. And some review sites are easier to deal with than others. And I won't name names. You know, there are some of these review sites that are just incredibly frustrating, because they'll push down some of the really strong reviews, and they'll push up the one potentially not even real review of a doctor, that it was like a competitor. And this is the thing, we're finding like competitors will leave false reviews as fake patients essentially on doctors' sites. And they're important.
Yeah, they are important. I mean, it's why I go to certain things, right? If I'm going to see negative reviews, I'm probably not going to check out that I take them with a grain of salt, but I mean,
that's the reason I chose my last doctor, is based on all his amazing Yelp reviews. And I literally told him that the first appointment. I was like, just so you know. He was like, really? I was like, yes, that's really important.
You might be the worst doctor, but your Yelp is awesome.
But your bedside manner is great.
But I would always say, just like you did, like tell the practice why, or tell the business why you're going to them. Is that it's the ridiculous neon sign out front that attracted you. It's all, you know, you had 5 friends that referred them. It's it's Yelp. It's you came across them on social media. Like, why did you end up landing on that doctor?
So, and I don't know if it's because I'm getting older and like more curmudgeony or something, but I like because I work in marketing and my reputation is so important, like I complain, and Nikki does too. Nikki is the expert at complaining, especially on social media. But like my local coffee shop, I go there every day, has the bitchiest girl who is super rude to me. And I complained, and guess who's nice to me now? I didn't say who I was. It was anonymous, but I'm sure they knew it was me because I'm literally there all the time. And like, she's actually sort of nice to me now. They totally changed something based on me complaining about it. And yeah, the same thing totally. My doctor, I complained about the front desk girl. And anyway, yeah.
I think often they don't know. Your doctor probably had no idea what was going on at the
exactly.
And I also think, so I had, recently had a procedure done, and I went and left a review on the doctor's site, left a positive review. And I think that's important too. So you get the good and the bad. 'Cause I think people tend to more fixate on the negative. And so I always say, if you had a good experience, then go leave a positive review too. So
yes, and if you're the business, respond.
Yes,
that's the biggest thing. If
good
it's
or
good,
bad.
if it's bad, respond.
And I mean, in our industry, you always have to be careful how you respond because of HIPAA. And so there's very specific things you can and cannot say. You can't acknowledge that they're necessarily a patient. So you can't say, oh, I loved seeing you last Thursday for your breast augmentation. Like, can't say that. But it is, there's always ways to work around things and to keep an eye on how to be great with it. So yeah, keep in mind, I mean, social media is more and more important. Review sites are becoming more and more important. So yeah, I mean, that's,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've gone on our review sites are important, tell us if you could sum up in like one piece of advice for a business. What is that piece?
I would say know what you're great at and know where you need to seek some outside help. So if, you don't have to be an expert in all things. None of us are an expert in all things. So we don't do our own taxes. We have an accountant do our taxes for us. We going through our rebrand, we hired somebody to redo our website, to redo all of, the graphic component and redo everything. Even though we are consultants, we still need help. And I think it's knowing what are your strengths, continue to keep your strengths strong, but knowing that when you need to look for outside help, knowing that that's okay. That's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign that you aren't doing something wrong, that you can probably make a heck of a lot more money by having someone else do that thing that you aren't maybe quite as great at, and, leave it to continue doing what you rock at. So what would you guys say?
Gosh, I asked this question and I hadn't even thought about it myself. Do you have one, Bekah?
Well, I would totally echo what you said, I think, because you said this early on. You said the reason that your business exists is because these people are medical professionals, or they do this or that, and that's what their strength is. And I think Nikki and I and any small businesses learned that you start a business because you're passionate about something, and that's usually in our example, the creative, the working with clients, the connecting people online. And then you find out pretty soon and early on that probably more than half of your time is spent running your business. And that's not necessarily, thankfully, like I think we both are okay with that. I like get really geeky about Excel spreadsheets, so that's great. But
I love Excel spreadsheets. I love data. I love data.
So I think
you guys can have them.
Right? Yeah, we'll take them, and Nikki can do the fun things. But I think, I think that is key. What you just said is asking for help. Like we recently posted something about the things that we have learned in the last year, or just in the 3.5 years we've had our business, and that is really great accountant is worth the money. Having a lawyer look at your contracts, those kinds of things that like you're like, I don't have the money early on, and you probably don't, but figure it out somehow, because I think
not to.
Right, you can't. I mean, it's easier to say now when there's a little more money in the bank than 3.5 years ago when it would have come out of our personal. But I mean, it's an investment in your business, and like if it needs to go on a credit card for a little bit, it's worth a couple $1,000s you may need to get the accounting right from the beginning. And that's huge. I think going out and so that you can focus more on the reasons you did start your business. The reality is we're always going to have businessy things that we have to do. We're not going to just do social media for our clients all day long. That's just not going to happen. We run a business, but there can be things that help us so that we can focus on the things we love more, and don't have to spend 50% of our time running our business.
And I would say, if I could add even to what I said, is that knowing that you want to have a plan in place. So you want to know, what is your plan for 6 months to a year out? I don't necessarily think you need to have a 5-year plan. I think a lot changes even within a year. I think technology changes. I think the way that consumers think and behave change. I think there's a lot that changes, but I would say look at least a year out, look 6 months to a year, and even if you want to break it down by quarter, but know that it's okay if that plan changes along the way. So if something new and amazing comes up and there's a great opportunity or a great partnership, or you realize that you came up with this brilliant idea and concept that is just a smash, then it's okay if the plan changes, but have a plan.
Right. We're all about the flexible.
That's one of the things we do every year, and I think is extremely helpful, A, to plan for the next year, but B, also to celebrate all the crap you did the year before that you worked really hard on.
Yeah. And I think
I break it down monthly, but
we do that. We're kind of with the tactical things we're doing for the year. But even what you said, like, I agree. Making a 5-year tactical plan is just dumb because it's going to completely change. However, we do kind of dream plans. Like 5 years from now, are we in an office space? Do we have a co-working space? How many employees do we want to have? What is it going to look like? Do we have a maternity package in case someone has a baby? That's the stuff that we talk about, kind of big dreaming about our business, which I think is helpful and fun. And then we look back and we're like, ha ha ha, we thought 5 years from the beginning we'd be at this level. We're not. But I think it is a fun little practice, especially as owners, not necessarily bringing in the whole management team if there's multiple people, but as the owners, I think, to really dream about what you want your future to look like.
I do think that there is, to a certain extent, I think once a business does reach a certain age, so once you have a business that is 5 years old, you do need to, at that point, look at where do you think you'll be 5 years from now? And you don't have to necessarily come up with the month to month for 5 years. So I think I almost, edit that a little bit. You need to just think about, do you think that there will be kids, whether it's a male or a female owner? Do you think that you will be growing or building any sort of family if you haven't already? Do you want to stay in the same geographic location? Do you want to move geographic locations? Do you want to, do you want to sign, if you're a restaurant, do you want to sign a 5-year lease? If it's, a medical practice, do you want to sign a 5 or a 10-year lease? Is that the area you want to stay in? Do you want to be big? Do you want to be small?
For you and your father, thinking about when is he going to retire? I'm sure he doesn't want to be working for the next 10 years. I don't know how old he is, but if he's anything like our dads, I'm sure he would love to be retired. So kind of talking about that.
Yeah, he's in his early 60s. So we, at that point, it's a very real conversation that we have of, and what does retirement look like? Because what retirement might be looking like for my dad, who has said, I don't want to ever sit home all day and do nothing. So he said, that's not what I want to do. But does he want to be running from conference to conference to client across the country? And does he want to be, doing that? And it could, like Nikki, it could be different of what your dad wants to do as far as a retirement plan. And, Bekah, it could be different with your dad, with what he looks and wants to do. So, but yeah, I think we're at that point where we are saying, okay, well, are you thinking more, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Do you plan on working forever? Do you
be part-time transitioning out, or kind of
right? Yeah. And there's not a right or wrong answer, but it's just, we need to know to plan. So absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you tell us where people can find you online? Website, Twitter?
Yes, absolutely. So now that we have relaunched and rebranded, so we are Shorr Solutions. So you can find us at shorrsolutions.com. So SHORRSOLUTIONS.com. So so shorrsolutions.com, and then we have a Twitter handle, an Instagram. Both of those are at Shorr Solutions, and Facebook is facebook.com/Shorr Solutions. So we've kept everything pretty consistent. And then you can also email me at one of 2 email addresses, as we're again in that transition. So either Mara Shorr at shorrsolutions.com or Mara Shorr at thebestmbs.com. So that is where you can find me in all of those places, because I run the digital. So
awesome. Perfect. Well, this was so great. We definitely feel like we had some really good tactical conversations here, which isn't always what we get to do. So that was really exciting and great. And we're really glad that we got a chance to chat with you and share this with our growing audience of bitches in business.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
You're
It was great to
welcome.
get to chat with both of you today.
Definitely. And please, if you are new to Bitches in Business or if you've watched our other episodes, we have 3 others that came before this, and we would love your feedback. And if you are a bitch in business, we would love to add you to our roster of people we're having conversations with. So you can find us at methodagency.com. On Twitter, we have the wonderful name We Have a Method, because Method Agency wasn't available, but everywhere else we can find us at Method Agency. So thank you so much, and see you next time.
Bye.